Retail sales head south for 18 months in a row. One of Hong Kong's richest men, Chung Yu-tung, dies.
Hitler massacred 3 million Jews. Now, there is 3 million, there's a 3 million drug addicts. There are. I'd be happy to slaughter them.
And Rodrigo Duterte likens drug suspect killings to the Holocaust.
Hello and a very good evening. Local retail sales continue their downward trend last month. Latest government figures show a drop for the 18th month in a row. Once again, sales of luxury goods were among the hardest hit. Winnie Wong reports.
Still no end in sight to the woes facing the local retail sector. According to latest government figures, the value of total retail sales for August is estimated at $33.9 billion. That's a 10.5% decrease year on year. The downward trend had showed signs of easing in July, but the gap grew again for August. Electrical goods and photographic equipment saw a 27.9% decrease. This was followed by jewelry, watches and clocks and valuable gifts, and commodities in department stores. Meantime, miscellaneous consumer durable goods fell by 37.8%. On the other hand, food, alcoholic drinks, and tobacco enjoyed an 8.8% increase. Books, newspapers, stationery, and gifts rose 1.9%. A government spokesman says the ongoing slump reflects the continuing drop in visitors in the city. He says the near-term outlook for retail sales still hinges on the performance of inbound tourism and how local consumer sentiment will be affected by external factors. Winnie Wong, TVB News.
Meanwhile, property prices touched their highest level this year after climbing for 5 months in a row. Home prices rose nearly 2% in August from July. That's according to the Rating and Valuation Department's monthly price index for private homes. Year on year, the figure dropped nearly 6%. And rents increased by 0.8% in August for the fourth consecutive month.
One of Hong Kong's richest men, Chung Yu-tung, has died at the age of 91. The former New World Development boss has been in poor health in recent years. Rachel Lung reports.
Chung Yu-tung was born in 1925 in the mainland city of Shinde. As a youngster, he started work as an apprentice at the Chow Tai Fook Gold Shop and married the founder's daughter, Cho Chui-ying. Chung inherited the jewelry business and branched out into real estate in the 1950s. In the 1970s, Chung founded New World Development with fellow businessmen Ho Sin Hang and Kwok Tak Sing. In 1984, the firm, along with the Trade Development Council, built the Convention and Exhibition Center. It was the biggest construction project of its kind at the time. Britain's Queen Elizabeth II, Prince Charles and Princess Diana were among those who officiated at its opening. The billionaire tycoon stepped down as chairman of New World Development in 2012. He was succeeded by his son Henry. Henry Zheng told reporters today that his father had been bedridden in recent years. A statement issued by New World Development on behalf of the family said Chung Yu-tung died peacefully last night with his family by his side. Rachel Lang, TVB News.
Foreign domestic helpers are getting a $100 pay rise. The government announced that helpers who sign contracts from tomorrow onwards will receive a monthly salary of $4,310. That is up from $4,210. For those getting a food allowance, that will go up from $995 to $1,037 a month. A government spokesman said the decision was made after taking into account the economic and market situation. It also factored in employers' affordability and the helpers' livelihood.
Across the border, the former Communist Party boss in Guangzhou has been sentenced to life in prison for accepting bribes. Wan Qingliang was also stripped of his political rights for life, with all his personal property confiscated. A court in Nanning found that Wan sought profits for others by taking advantage of his posts. It also found he had accepted bribes worth more than 111 million yuan. The court said his crimes dated back to the year 2000.
3 Chinese fishermen are dead after a fire broke out on their boat while the South Korean Coast Guard was trying to apprehend them for illegal fishing. A Coast Guard official believes the men suffocated after flash grenades were thrown into a room that they were hiding in. Authorities are questioning the 14 surviving crew and Coast Guard members involved in the operation. Disputes over illegal fishing have long been an irritant in relations between China and South Korea. Beijing says it has lodged a protest with Seoul over the incident.
South Korea's military aims to deploy an advanced U.S. missile defense unit on a golf course. On the heels of tension on the Korean peninsula, South Korea agreed with the U.S. that it needs a THAAD anti-missile system. So this golf course in Seongju, owned by the Lotte Group, will be the home of the Terminal High Altitude Area Defense Unit. Earlier, Seoul picked a site in the rural farming town of Seongju, but residents there were against the plan. The golf course is also in Seongju, but located further from the town's main residential areas.
Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte today toughened the rhetoric in the war on drugs and killings of suspects, likening the situation to Hitler and the Holocaust. Duterte said he would be happy to slaughter 3 million addicts.
Hitler massacred 3 million Jews. Now, there's a 3 million drug addicts. There are. I'd be happy to slaughter them. At least, if Germany had Hitler, the Philippines would have. But, you know, my victims, I would like to be all criminals to finish the problem of my country and save the next generation from perdition.
Hundreds of university students rallied in Manila today. They demanded an end to extrajudicial killings in their country. To the latest in a deadly train disaster in the U.S. state of New Jersey. Investigators are searching the crash scene to figure out why a train packed with commuters failed to stop and crash into the station. A woman was killed and more than 100 were injured.
It was the early morning rush hour yesterday when train 1614 en route from New York slammed into Hoboken Station. Witnesses say it was like a bomb blew up.
It was just like something was blown all apart. Ceiling, whole roof, and all that stuff came down, and wires all over the place, and little smoke and debris, stuff like that. Blood everywhere, people bleeding everywhere. And
it was screaming, and everybody was screaming, and the people was falling in each other.
The governor of New Jersey rushed to the scene and quickly broke the news.
What we know is that this train came in at a high rate of speed into the station and crashed through all of the barriers, bringing it right to the interior wall of the Hoboken terminal.
The crash triggered a deadly chain reaction. On impact, passengers in the first car sustained major damage, while those on the platform were crushed under fallen debris. That's how Fabiola Batard de Kroon died after she rushed to make the train on time. Her friends are devastated.
She was just lovable. She loved her daughter. She always had a smile on her face. She wanted to do everything she can for her daughter. I mean, just a wonderful person.
In all, 108 people were wounded, some critically. In addition to scrutinizing the train, its black box, the tracks and signals, investigators will question the conductor.
So the engineer, as you may know, was injured. He's been released from the hospital, and we will be interviewing him.
Israeli elder statesman Shimon Peres has been laid to rest in a ceremony attended by thousands of admirers and dozens of international dignitaries. US President Barack Obama, former US President Bill Clinton, and Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas headlined a long list of world leaders who converged on Israel's National Cemetery for the event. In a heartfelt eulogy, Obama said that Peres showed that justice and hope are at the heart of the Zionist ideal. Peres died on Wednesday at the age of 93, 2 weeks after suffering a stroke. Well, tensions are escalating again between India and Pakistan. Indian special forces say they've carried out surgical strikes against militants in the highly militarized frontier that divides the Kashmir region between the nuclear-armed rivals. James Aiken reports.
Indian officials say teams of elite troops crossed the de facto border dividing the two countries, killing several militants it believed were plotting to attack major cities.
Because the other side, they have been testing our patience.
Yesterday's raid came after India accused Pakistan of being involved in a terrorist attack on a military base in the Indian-controlled Kashmir region earlier this month. 18 Indian soldiers were killed and many more injured. Islamabad has dismissed the accusations and says instead that 2 of its soldiers were killed in unprovoked firing by India across the border.
They are trying to sabotage all sorts of peace activities, or they are destroying the environment of peace in the region.
India accuses Pakistan of arming and training insurgents at terrorist launch pads to push them into the Indian portion of Kashmir and attack government forces and other targets. Pakistan says it provides only political and diplomatic support to the insurgents. Pakistani demonstrators demanded an emergency meeting at the United Nations Security Council to consider what they say are Indian provocations.
India must be stopped from further unprovoked firing across the line of control.
The Indian military has indicated it is not planning any further action against Pakistan, but New Delhi is considering using its rising economic and diplomatic weight to squeeze Pakistan, possibly through trade channels. Washington, meanwhile, is encouraging both sides to avoid escalation.
The United States continues to be concerned by the danger that cross-border terrorism poses to the region. And the United States fully expects that Pakistan will take effective action to combat and delegitimize UN-designated terrorist individuals and entities.
Despite rising tensions between the two countries, a Pakistani lawmaker says neither side can afford to go to war, which he said would result in destruction and nothing else. James Aiken, TVB News.
And still ahead in the news tonight. The Town Planning Board throws out Chai Wan columbarium plan. Deutsche Bank woes spook global financial markets. And Canada on top of the world of hockey.
Pigs that swim. Stoats acting loopy. Green slime invades China. And fish living in a shopping centre. Tonight, nature's weirdest events at 9:35 on Pearl.
It was big, it was exciting. This is exactly what we're looking for.
The 10th year celebration of incredible talent, drive and determination.
I have to say, that was pretty spectacular.
Saturday and Sunday, Nature's Bounty presents America's Got Talent, Season 10 at 8:30 on Pearl.
Whatever your reason for flying to Europe, make all your business meetings a success. Tell your loved ones how much you love them from the other side of the world. Fly to Europe with Aeroflot and enjoy the outstanding onboard service. Aeroflot, crossing Eurasia.
There's a new park in Toon Moon, next to the sea and beautiful hills. It's a high-tech facility that turns sludge into clean power to ease pressure on landfills. It's also an eco-friendly landmark with education, recreation, and ecological facilities. It's no ordinary park. It's T Park. T for transformation. Go to tpark.hk and book your visit.
bear braves the freezing Arctic cold of Scotland and gets friendly with reindeer on the way to climbing the highest mountain in the UK.
This bit's horrible.
Monday, Britain's biggest adventures with Bear Grylls. The last episode at 9:35 on Pearl.
Welcome back. The Town Planning Board has rejected a proposal by Kerry Logistics to turn an old warehouse in Chai Wan into a private columbarium. Adam Shu has more.
Kerry Logistics had planned to turn this 15-story industrial building in Chai Wan into a private columbarium, providing more than 80,000 niche spaces. But it needed the Town Planning Board's approval first. The board today voted down the proposal amid widespread opposition. It said it had received nearly 13,000 submissions of views when consulting the public, and almost all of them wanted the plan killed. The board noted the columbarium would be a misfit in an area devoted to logistics, and granting the plan would set a precedent that could lead to the loss of more industrial land in the area. It also questioned whether the applicant could tackle the extra traffic generated by the project. On Tuesday, the Eastern District Council urged the board to veto the proposal. But Kerry criticised the council's move as biased. The company said government departments told the council their concerns about potential impacts on, for example, traffic and urban planning, just 3 days before today's vote, leaving it inadequate time to defend itself. This, Kerry argued, amounted to reaching a verdict before trial. The firm insisted traffic in the area would not come to a standstill after the site opens. It added a booking system would help manage visitor numbers even during peak grave sweeping seasons. Hong Kong is struggling to find enough spaces to store ashes. The government proposed 6 years ago to build 24 public columbaria in all 18 districts. But so far, only 2 districts have delivered. The Food and Health Bureau expects a bill on regulating private ash places will soon be passed, hoping the market could help meet growing demand. Supporters of Kerry's plan said, against this backdrop, the board should focus on coming up with traffic support to minimize the project's impact rather than simply rejecting it. Adam Xu, TVB News.
Residents at a Tin Hau estate are crying foul over what they describe as unreasonably high maintenance fees. Some are even calling it a case of bid rigging. But as Elmi Lung reports, the property's management denies any wrongdoing.
The flats at Dragon Court may be bringing owners more concern than comfort. Each household is expected to fork out between $300,000 and almost $500,000 in maintenance fees, depending on the size of their unit. The total bill is just shy of $150 million, up from the initial estimate of $60 million just 3 years ago. Structural repair and exterior works at the Tin Hau estate come with a price tag of $63 million, and charges for other items also shot up considerably. For example, repainting lines of car park spaces was expected to cost $100,000. The winning contractor now intends to charge 7 times that amount. Today, the property's management insisted all tendering procedures were followed properly, and it kept residents informed of the progress by posting notices on site. But some owners say they only became suspicious after getting the latest quotation.
Our owners initially very believed the management office and also the chairman of the committee. Therefore, we overlooked the maintenance project.
She sought help from a concerned group after failing to obtain minutes of the meetings and tender notes.
It seems that the tendering exercise is some kind of screening system, and because they have received 27 tenders, but for unknown reason they just allow 13 of them to be considered by the IO, and ultimately only 6 of the tenderers were submitted to the general meeting for the owners to choose.
The newly elected lawmaker also urged flat owners at Dragon Court to attend the general meeting early next month to suspend signing any repair work contracts. He said the alliance has so far received hundreds of suspected bid-rigging cases and criticized the government for turning a blind eye to the problem. Elmi Long, TVB News.
Turning overseas again, after doubts about whether it would go ahead, Britain gave the green light to the construction of a nuclear power station in a closed-door ceremony in London. The low-key event underscored the cautious approach by British Prime Minister Theresa May to the project. Hinkley Point C will be built in southwest England by French energy giant EDF, with $8 billion in funding provided from China.
Worries over the financial health of Deutsche Bank resumed today, sending shares in Germany's biggest bank into a tailspin and to a record low.
Reports that at least 10 hedge funds are moving their business out of the bank were a catalyst to the latest bout of selling.
Is this the endgame for banking giant Deutsche Bank? Doubts about its health have been brewing for some time now, especially since it announced a loss of more than €6 billion for 2015. It's also been plagued by a series of scandals, including accusations over the pricing and mis-selling of mortgage-backed securities in the run-up to the financial crisis of 2008. America's Justice Department is seeking a fine of up to $14 billion. Some have also blamed the European Central Bank's low interest rate policy for exacerbating the firm's problems, although this was rejected by the head of the ECB.
We also said that many banks have problems that don't have to do primarily, or some banks have problems that don't have to do primarily with a low level of interest rates, but possibly with other reasons, either business model or risk management.
Still, some of the hedge funds that use Deutsche Bank's prime brokerage services to clear derivative trades aren't taking any chances. Several have decided to withdraw excess cash and positions with the lender to avoid exposure to any potential crisis. Deutsche Bank has tried to put on a brave face, saying the majority of its clients have kept faith with the bank and believe its fundamentals are strong. But the market remains unconvinced, and the news about clients pulling their money out has only added to the jitters. Indeed, concerns about the bank's stability pushed its US-listed shares down by more than 8% on Wall Street overnight. Now, all eyes are on the German government and Chancellor Angela Merkel to see if her administration will step in to provide liquidity and support for the bank. So far, Merkel has shown very little appetite for a rescue. But if there is a risk of financial contagion and a broader threat to the economy, Berlin might have to change its tune.
All right, Tony, I see you have some hockey action for us.
We surely do. Let's talk all about it. Host Canada defeated Team Europe 2-1 to win the World Cup of Hockey. Stanley Cup champion Sidney Crosby was selected as the tournament's most valuable player with 3 goals and 10 points. Here's James Wong.
Big Z gave Europe the lead in the first period. The Europeans looking to level the series at a game apiece and send it to a decider. After a scoreless second, we moved to the third, and Patrice Bergeron leveled it up for the hosts with less than 3 minutes on the clock. Then under a minute to go, Jonathan Toews left it for Brad Marchand. 2-1 Canada. MVP Sidney Crosby and company went undefeated in picking up their second straight World Cup of Hockey title. The national team has won 16 straight games, including 2 Olympic gold medals, since losing to the U.S. in the 2010 Olympic Games in Vancouver. Jameson Wong, TVB News.
Europa League, and Manchester United rebounded from an opening loss to Feyenoord to beat Zora Luhansk of Ukraine 1-0. Jose Mourinho's men dominated possession at Old Trafford and broke through with 20 minutes left in the game. Zlatan Ibrahimovic scored his first goal in 5 matches, nodding in Wayne Rooney's attempt at the far post. Rooney came on as a substitute despite injury concerns and a poor run of form. United moved up to 3rd place in Group A and trail leaders Fenerbahce by 1 point.
And that's our news. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone.
Have a great weekend. Good night.